welcome in. This is Conversation Design Job Interview hosted by Botmock. If you're new here, I am Yuli, Community Manager here at Botmock, and today we invited Elaine, who is quite experienced in the field of recruiting and interviewing for conversation designer jobs. Elaine, could you care to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. My name is Elaine. I'm a conversation designer. Right now, I work at a company called NLX, and my specialty is actually in multimodal design. I also really like, sharing a lot of community resources. As someone who came outside of design and kind of shifted over into conversation design, mostly in like the past year or so, I know how important it is to share resources and share knowledge. So I'm constantly trying to put content out there to help future conversation designers.
Yes, if you're interested in following Elaine, I think her channel of Twitter and LinkedIn will be in the caption below. And she's constantly sharing, like every day, she makes multiple posts about very informational conversation design posts. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, so I guess now we can go into the actual content of recruiting for conversation design jobs. So I guess first we can start with what an average or normal, interview process would look like in conversation design.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely depends on the size of the company that you're applying for, but most of the interviews kind of look the same. They have the same format. So generally, a lot of companies outsource their recruiting, so they don't have an internal HR looking for conversation designers. They generally ask technical recruiters to find these people. So your first step when applying is, of course, you submit an application, but you'll probably actually get contacted by a recruiter online, or if your profile is anywhere, they're constantly looking for keywords that match your description. And they'll reach out saying, hey, I want to submit you for this job role. Can you tell me a little bit about your background? So they kind of do like a check, make sure that your experience aligns with the role. After you go through that process, then you'll actually meet the hiring manager for the team. There's someone who's actually part of the company closer to the work, so they'll kind of know what you'll actually be working on. So that it's definitely like a good time to learn more about the team and ask questions about what kind of work they do. And then again, depending on the size of the company, it could be multiple rounds with like a lot of other team members, or it could be like straight away with whoever's like the head of product or whoever's like the head of the conversational design division. And then basically the last step is like a culture fit assessment, trying to make sure that you'll work well with the company culture.
Mhm. I wonder if there's a difference in how you pitch yourself differently to, like the hiring manager and the recruiting people, since as you mentioned, hiring managers kind of know a little bit more than the technical recruiters.
Yeah, so the questions that you get asked are actually really different. With a recruiter, it's more like hard, straight to the facts, like, can you give me like how many years of experience do you have? Like, what's the most recent project you did related to conversation design? What was like the scope of the project? Like, what industry were you working in? So they mostly ask those kind of questions related to like more like the hard facts. And then when you actually go in and talk to the hiring manager, they want to get to know you as a designer. They already know that you have like passed the experience check. So they want to know like, what's your working style? Why did you get interested in becoming a conversation designer? So that's actually a question I got asked a lot with the hiring manager. It's like, why did you decide to become a conversation designer? I see you have X experience. So it's mostly because the role is so new. They're really trying to gauge like, are you in it because it's like really flashy and new, or are you in it because like you see a potential and this is a growing industry and you want to be a part of it?
I see. That's cool. Did you also encounter like behavioral interviews as well? As we can see in like other normal interviews in other industries, they would usually have behavioral interviews.
Yeah, I would say that was mostly toward the end. So if there are multiple rounds, I once had an interview process that went like 5 full rounds, and that was actually in the last round. So in the final round, I met like a ton of the team members, cross-functional team. So it's not just the immediate team. They also brought in like the data analyst and like the content manager and things like that. So that's when they were asking those behavior type questions, like, how would you react in this situation? Like, what if, you know, you couldn't communicate properly with a team member outside of your team? So it's mostly at that final point where they're asking those kind of questions, but they do ask behavioral.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. What about um I always wonder if they would present you with problems right there and then they would have you like solve the problem like like the leak code questions for coders or something like would they present like a problem to you and you have to solve everything within like 5 minutes?
Oh yeah, it's actually very different because I would say like half of the time when you're applying, you know, people do know what they're hiring for, but they don't really know the specifics of what a conversation designer does. And again, this role is very new and not very formalized or standardized. So none of that actually happens in the conversation design interview process. You don't actually solve things live in front of other people. You don't get handed like a prompt and then have to like script an entire chatbot in like 10 minutes. No one asks you to do that. I know that's very common, like whiteboarding in UX design. That's like a very formal part of the process. You don't get any of that in conversation design interviews. What that looks like is actually the take-home assessment. So they kind of like let you do like a little bit of homework. You put in some work and actually, well, you still design like a chatbot and you still give example scripts and answer general questions about terminology and things like that. But it's kind of self-paced. They generally give you like 2 or 3 days to get back. And they always put a time limit because again, like they don't want to make you work if they haven't hired you yet. And of course, you yourself should probably, you know, limit the amount of work that you're doing. You only really have to prove that you know what they're asking for. You don't have to prove that like you're the best at it or like I'm a perfectionist, like this is the entire chatbot from start to finish. It's mostly just about proving that you have the know-how and that they can trust to hire you.
Exactly. Yeah, don't do free labor, guys. But
Yeah.
it's also very stress relieving to hear that you don't have to do everything on the spot. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that was a really good segue into the next part, which is portfolio, which I guess a lot of people are very interested at. So do you want to show us what your portfolio looks like? Or give us some suggestions on, like how in different ways people can construct their portfolio?
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen, and essentially this is the portfolio that I used to actually apply for jobs earlier this year. December, January is when I was like really looking for conversation design jobs. And this is a portfolio that got me hired. So kind of like the thing to know about mine though is like I mentioned before, I'm a multimodal designer. I design for voice and visuals and kind of like different modalities. So for my portfolio, it's really important for me to showcase that I do know how to do visual design on top of conversation design and UX design. So I have 2 projects in my portfolio. I have my capstone project that I did for my Voice Tech Global certification course. And this is something that I uploaded on Behance, so it kind of showcases my visual design abilities, but also I'm just showing you the entire UX process. Like I gave the results of my user research. I showed example scripts. And yeah, so that's something that I really wanted to highlight because of the nature of the role that I was applying to. As far as the other project on my portfolio, I did want to showcase that I did have like experience in conversation design only, so that I was comfortable doing like voice and chat experiences. And the project that I decided to show was actually the Designathon competition from August 2020, which was Voice Devs and Botmock collaboration, actually. So yeah, so I actually did showcase this on several of my interviews. I was saying like, oh, this design won third place. This is why. I showed them my design process, and then of course I showed them the actual live prototype, which is linked on my website. So in general, like not everyone's conversation design portfolio has to look like this. A thing to note is I actually coded my own website, and that's totally not required. You can use a website builder. And I think the important thing is just to show that you can explain your design thinking. People don't really care how your website looks like. It's mostly about being able to have an entire page dedicated to notes of what you learned during the process.
That's very comprehensive. I really like how you can navigate through like each project you have here. Do you mind taking us through the Botmock project that you created?
Yeah. So like I was explaining before, one of my interviews, I was on interview panels. So that was like the 5th round interview with tons of team members. It was very intense. So in that process, I kind of did like a mini presentation of like who I am, because a lot of these people who were invited didn't even see my resume. Like they were just invited because like, oh, someone's getting hired. I just want to see if this is going to be a good fit. So they didn't know who I was. I had to give background. And then additionally, on top of that, I also presented this design. So I actually shared my screen like I'm doing right now, and I kind of walked people through my project. So to give some context, the challenge was to write, kind of create a voice application to help everyday people track their daily water intake. So it's mostly like a water intake tracker, and I worked in a 2-person team. We were called Snapple Remembers, which is our own inside joke, but basically my ex-teammate from Apple, where we worked as localization specialists, we collaborated together to create Hydrate. So the thing about Hydrate that we really wanted to focus on is create a voice application that didn't feel clunky or like traditional IVR. We specifically were targeting a younger demographic with this. So, and you can see that with a lot of our language, like our name itself, like Hydrate with the actual number 8, that was intentional. And so I would say like when I was explaining this project, I wanted to really showcase what we learned throughout the process. So we really overcomplicated this. We wanted to make a ton of different features for our voice app, and we wanted to be like, oh, people can save their drinking receptacle and have like a favorite bottle or something like that. And just every time they come to the app, they could just say, oh, I drank some water. And, you know, the voice application would ask, oh, was it like your favorite bottle? And then you could just say yes. And it would score up your tally, and you could listen to your total at the end of the day. So the problem with that, which we discovered with testing, user testing, is actually people are very inconsistent when it comes to drinking water. Like sometimes you don't fill up your bottle all the way through. You'll buy a new bottle and you don't know exactly how much water you can fit in there. Like who knows the measurements of their bottle? Like off the top of your head. Like that's kind of a little bit too much to ask for. Plus, there are so many different kinds of drinking receptacles. Some people prefer drinking glasses, some people like bottles, and some people want to count like their sparkling water cans as like, you know, their daily water intake. So it was just really complicated, and we figured that out with testing. It's like no way we can actually measure this properly. So that was something that I highlighted in the interview process. I was like, we had to learn, we had to simplify, and we had to just make something that worked for real people. And yeah, another cool feature about this that I really liked that we did with Botmock is that essentially here you have like the welcome and then you have a goal set up. So it's very easy to just like hard code everything in chat writing, but what we really wanted is to make it dynamic and make it like, again, usable for real people. So what we did is tell me a goal that sounds good for you. So you would have to give like an actual number of how many fluid ounces. And we wanted to make sure that people don't say like crazy numbers or like really low numbers that wouldn't get you hydrated. So what we actually did is we added some conditioning on these blocks here so that if people said too high a number or too low a number, we would kind of have like that check and make sure like people are being healthy with their drinking habits. So that was the main feature. That was what we changed. Like instead of having a favorite drinking bottle, we would actually make sure that we're being biologically accurate.
That is so awesome. I really like how you try to explain, what problems you encounter in the designathon, and also just like your particular features, and then like walk us through why you decided to do like, oh, maybe this is too low, maybe this is too high. Like, yeah, I think it was very comprehensive. Okay, so I guess after all this, you attended a lot of, hackathons or like project certificate, like you mentioned, Voice Global. So do you have any tips for people who are just getting into the field, or for people who are currently recruiting for a conversation designer jobs? I guess, do they need to participate in a lot of these? Do they need to hard code their website, or like, what do you suggest them to do?
Yeah, so I would say a thing that sets you apart, first of all, is having a website. It's a lot easier if you're trying to showcase your work. Again, it is a branch of UX design. It is still a part of design. So you do want to have like a very accessible and visually appealing way to present your work. I know like a lot of conversation design is chat and voice, and sometimes it doesn't translate to visuals entirely, but you have to remember the first step of the process are technical recruiters, and they're the ones who are going to be breezing through your application. They're going to look at whatever resources you give, and you have to be able to convince them in like 5 seconds of opening your website that you are who you say you are and you know what you do. So that's my first tip, is like definitely do invest in having a portfolio website in the first place, because a lot of candidates right now are probably not doing that. So if you're having a website and you link it on your resume, that's going to set you apart. The second point is that not everyone has direct experience related to conversation design or voice technology if they're trying to shift into it. I know a lot of people come from many different backgrounds. I personally have a degree in biology, but the thing about me is I've actually worked in tech for 3 years. And I was actually very lucky to be able to have worked in voice technology before. I was actually a metadata curator at Apple before this role. So I worked on Siri, and I could definitely show that to my recruiter or hiring manager, whatever, that I knew what I was talking about. Some people don't have that luxury. So the way to prove that you have experience is to actually, if you can, like, I know this Botmock competition is over, but keep an eye out for competitions, designathons that happen within the conversation design community. Those are really good portfolio and resume boosters. I know some people feel weird about putting projects that are not like paid or are not client-based on their resume, but you should definitely put those on there. They actually do count. It's experience, and experience always counts. And I think, what was it? It was Digital Assistant Academy just had a designathon, like I think in March or April. So these things are constantly coming out. So don't feel sad if you like missed one. There's going to be another one coming up. You just got to keep an eye out. And if that doesn't work, like try to do your own projects. But always, especially if you're transitioning from a different field into this one, you have to showcase that you have worked on something. If you don't have experience, you'll need to put a project section with actual projects. And the best thing is to put a link to the project. Like if you have Botmock account, you can do what I did and just link to the canvas. And then, or if you have like your own website, then you would link to the actual project information page. So that's my second tip, is like, if you don't have experience, put your projects on your resume. It's going to help out a lot. And I guess the third tip would be, depending on what company you're applying to, they'll have an existing chatbot or conversational experience. And if they do, you definitely want to do your research. Even before talking to the hiring manager, you better do your homework and kind of see how they have their current product. Like, you have to try it out in order to improve on it, right? So people are always going to like candidates who do their homework on the company itself and try out these chatbots or whatever kind of experience they're offering. You have to try it out first, and then write down your notes. And that way, when you do get to talk to whoever is managing the team, you'll get to actually say, hey, I really liked what work you guys have done so far because of XYZ, and you have actual concrete proof to tell them. And whenever you do that, when I did that, people always really liked it. Like, they're like, oh man, like they actually know what we're doing. They're excited to work with us. So that's definitely very important to do.
Yeah, it's like such a small thing, but then it will make people so impressed. Like, just do a little bit of research and then people will be like, oh, they actually care about us. They're not just like throwing like 50 resumes to every company,
Yeah.
even though you're doing that, but researching specific companies will get you very far. Yeah, I also liked how your second point was that always just do it, even if you don't, have actual professional experience participating in like designathons, hackathons, and even just like starting a project by yourself, which, by the way, we have the link below in starting a free project in Botmock. So you can just literally start one, like a airline chatbot or like a retail customer service chatbot, whatever you want to do. You can sign up and then have a 14-day free trial and then put that in your resume. It's that easy. Yeah, so thank you, Elaine, so much for this very brief crash course of conversation designer job interview. And then we know that, conversation design is a very new and up and coming field. So for all the people who are watching, if you have any experience that you want to share, questions you got asked in your job interviews, or questions you have for us, feel free to comment below in the YouTube video. Yeah, and that's for it. Thank you, Elaine, for participating in our video, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you. I also have to plug really quick. If you're looking for more resources, I actually do have a blog post I published recently, how to get hired in conversation design. So do check that out as well. And yeah, keep learning and keep doing your thing. Really, thank you so much for having me, Uli, and really, really like working with Botmock. I mean, you guys got me started in my conversation design journey, so really appreciate it.
That's awesome. Yeah, so Elaine's resources will be in the caption below, and then Botmock's starting prototype link will also be in the caption below. Okay, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.